Good morning. Do demographics affect the value of your antiques, artwork, and estate items? Does the size of a family, does the size of a household, does that impact what you can realistically expect your items to sell for? We'll be talking about that this week in Behind the Gavel with Jason. Thank you all so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a second. Let me go ahead and share this on my page personally. And we're going to be talking about the idea, topic of how do demographics affect the value of antiques, artwork, and estate items. And it's kind of esoteric. A lot of people don't think about values of antiques in this type of way, but we do, or I do a lot. I spend a lot of time looking at researching all the factors around my business that can affect my business. One of the things that I see is that the younger generation, and I'm still part of that. I'm 47 now. I just turned 47 a few weeks ago. But we have 12 and 16-year-old children, and so I am as much I talk to younger families regularly. I encounter that. I interact with them because they have, there are people who have 12-year-olds who are in their early 30s, whereas we're in our late 40s and Stacy's in her early 50s. And so we kind of have feet in both sides of that conversation, and we can I feel like I can address that. It's also really intriguing. There's going to be quite a few numbers. I want to look at a sheet of paper here I wrote down some notes on. So let's talk about what are the demographics. What are we talking about? So demographics to me, what I'm looking at is size of household, birth rates, how quickly, how soon families are being started, things like that. So in 1930, there were 29,905 households, and these numbers are all according to the United States Census Bureau. There was an average of 4 persons per household. The largest segment of the population was 2 people in a household of 23.4%, but 6 members or more was 7.6%. In 1950, there were 43,000 households. The average was 3.3, so you can see it's already a pretty significant drop from 1930 to 1950. The largest segment, again, was 2 persons per household at 28.5%. This is the interesting one, though. Households with 6 people or more were only 5.1%. In 1970, there were 62,000 households, almost 63,000. Average size is 3.1 person per household. 2 people per household was 28.8%. Again, the largest segment. And the 6 or more was 5.6. This is interesting. In 1990, so this is 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago now. So this is the generation that we're talking about. Good morning, Mercedes. Good morning, Stacy. Thank you all for watching. In 1990, there was 93,000 households, 2.6 people per household. This is a huge change. There was 24% of the households in 1990 were only 1 person. 32% were 2 persons, and the biggest factor is 2.3% were only 6 people or more per household was only 2.3%. So you can see that the smaller household, there's many more households, but they're much smaller. There's fewer people. And so how does that affect antiques and artwork and their value? And it's a couple of pretty simple reasons there. There's a couple of pretty esoteric ones. The one reason that we go to a lot and talk to people a lot about is, the common thought in the antiques world is nobody wants your stuff. Nobody wants your parents' stuff. Nobody wants your stuff, your antiques. And the reality is there's not enough people in your family to want it. Looking at those numbers, 40, 50 years ago, there was 4 and 5 people in a house. So you had, generally speaking, a mom and dad and 2 children. There's obviously variations, but that was it. That was kind of the thing. But there was many families that had 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6 children for much larger households. Now that is almost unheard of. To find a family has more than 2 children is almost unheard of. The percentage of that is, 0.5% or less. And so the other thing to consider is that the birth rate is actually less than the death rate. So we are, since about 1970, we are averaging less children being born, less babies being born than we're averaging people dying. And so there's not enough people to just take the place of. And so that is another huge factor. If they just don't have people in your family, if you think of your family as a corporation, you have mom, grandma and grandpa at the top as the hierarchy, as the CEO and CFO. Then you have their children, and then their children, and then their children. Used to have a pretty broad, structure. A lot of people. You just have two, three, four people in a family. They'd each have two, three, or four children. They'd each have two, three, or four children. So before you knew it, you have 20, 30, 40 people in the family to choose from the items you wanted. And now you might have, my brother and I, we're in for my folks. My brother just had his first child at 44 years old, and my wife and I have two, and we're not having it anymore. Our boys are 12 and 16. So, there's just not going to be the large, possibilities of my family of being able to accumulate those items that mom and dad have, that grandma and grandpa. And so that is a huge factor in the marketplace. Mercedes was bummed. It was outbid on everything she bid on for the Dolores Hadley Marionettes. No, there's nothing left, Mercedes. We sold it all. That's a common question. I want to have to use that for Behind the Gavel one week. What happens to things that are left? And generally speaking, there's nothing left. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. We sold things. We had bidders from 7 countries for that auction. And we had, 35 states, 30 or 35 states. And so it was widely seen and engaged with. Things going to museums, personal collections. People who worked with her were inspired by her, were mentored by her. So yeah, the Dolores Hadley marionettes, that was a pretty special auction. We're really excited about it. We're going to post some more information, some follow-up information on that here shortly in regards to the reach and the expansion and the size of all that. For the rest of you watching, if you have questions about today's Behind the Gavel with Jason or anything else, go ahead and post it here. Hit the like button, hit the share button with your friends and family. Let them know you're watching this. We really appreciate you sharing the word and letting your friends and family know. I really enjoy sharing this information with you every week. It always feels better if I know that it's being seen. So, but back to what we're talking about this week as far as demographics, family size, and those kinds of things, and why that affects the value of the antiques and art markets. The simple reason is if there's just not as many people buying today as there were 20, 30, 40 years ago, how can people want as much? Like I said, if you're 50 years old, you have 2 or 3 brothers and sisters, and you have 1 or 2 children, and one of your siblings had none, and the other one had 2. Well, just think of the math. Just think of the math. It's a math problem. As heartless as that sounds, the antiques, artwork, estate market is all math based. The more people who are buying, the more value the pieces will have. The more competition there will be in auction and antique shops and estate sales. The higher the prices. The more demand, higher prices. Right now, we have a lot of supply, and the numbers are actually it's starting to balance. We're noticing prices coming back up in a lot of markets, and we're seeing a lot of more interest in specific markets. And I think that's because we've come out of a big recession. People are really comfortable again. Wages have started to come up a little bit, and unemployment is way down. And so people are feeling really confident and secure in the marketplace that they're going to have a job, they're going to have decent pay. They're concerned about a lot of different things: health costs, housing costs, education costs. But there's a lot of balance. There's a lot of balance right now. I'm seeing people aren't too concerned. They're not too optimistic. They're kind of really comfortable. I think that's a good way to put it. There's concern and there's optimism, but not one or the other is outweighing the other for society at large. And so that's a good thing. That's a really good thing for the long-term market. I think we're going to see a lot more activity in the antiques and estate markets if that mentality, if that philosophy for our society continues and stays at that level of really just comfortable with where the economy is at and things along those lines. So we'll see how things go. But right now it looks pretty good. I think we're going to see we're seeing a lot of activity from younger folks entering the marketplace for the first time for a lot of them, or newly entering it. And so it's really a really interesting factor to see what they're looking at and why, and what's appealing to them and why. And I think that's one other thing. Demographics aside, the quality is always going to drive value. We really noticed that this week in our auction. The Hadley auction there's great quality. I mean, they were all spectacularly made, But in the antique auction on Monday night, the quality pieces, my goodness, we're getting prices this week that we haven't seen in 20 years. Hi, Susan. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them here. Hit the like button if you're enjoying what we're talking about. The quality of what we were selling was top notch. We had some really top notch ceramic pieces. We sold a cup and saucer for $700. We sold portrait plates for $700, and those prices haven't been seen at auction in a long, long time. We surprised a lot of people, including ourselves, including our consignor, because we obviously did not expect those numbers. So we're seeing obviously younger buyers are entering the market and interested in certain things, but we're also seeing that quality is really driving demand. And so that's the other factor. But back to today, demographics, we're talking about, there's a lot of different things changing. The women are having children later in life. The average age, in 1970, the first child was at 24.6 years of age. Now the first child is coming in about 28 years of age. That's a huge difference. When we were, I was born in 1971, so that's right in my parents' wheelhouse. My mom was, I want to say 21 or 22. She just graduated college, but she got married and had me right away. Now that same scenario, even if you're getting married right out of college, the family, the husband and wife, are generally waiting a couple of years to get some more financial stability, get an idea of where they're going to land. With jobs being national, international in scope, there's a lot of possibility and opportunity for young families to say, we could move to New York or London or Taiwan or Tokyo, wherever you want to live. You can find that opportunity. And so a lot of people are waiting until they have an opportunity to see and experience those places before they have children, so that they feel really confident that that's where they want to be and they can get a good lay of the land. So you're seeing people, families and women having children later and later and later. I mean, great news of that is teen pregnancy is down by 50% since, what was it? I was surprised by this. It's down by half since 2007. 2007, teen pregnancy is half what it was in 2007. So in just the last 10 years, 11 years, teen pregnancy has dropped in half. And I think we would all say these are great advancements, great things. We all want, my young men, my boys, the girls they're going to school with, young women they're going to school with, they're not worried about getting married and having children. They're worried about getting scholarships, and they're worried about getting college educations and what they're going to do for the next 30 or 40 years. And so those things change how they view antiques and estate items, not because they don't appreciate them. I'm so tired of hearing that. Young people do like antiques. They do appreciate them, but they're in a different place in their life than the generations before them were. And so it's not that they don't like them. It's not that they don't appreciate them. It's that they just don't have a reason to engage with them at this point in their life. And so they're going to be coming up and coming to those markets later in life, and oftentimes with more money. Mercedes, maybe we'll wait because education. Absolutely. My daughter is 30. She was a forever student, finally married in 2019. Congratulations. She'll be in her 30s when she asked. Absolutely. My wife was 35 when we had our oldest child, and then we adopted our second child. And that is becoming more and more and more prevalent. Homosexual couples, gay couples are accepted today. In 1970, they weren't. 1980, they weren't. And so you have areas of the conversation, areas of the society that were completely underground. People played straight. We have plenty of clients and customers in their 50s and 60s now who played straight when they were younger because they had to, and now they don't have to. Their children who are gay don't have to. They can be whomever they are, and it's such a powerful thing for young people and for young women in particular. If you don't want to get married when you're 18 years old and have a kid and be beholden to a man forever, that's fantastic. I don't want my boys, if that's their life, that's what happens. But I certainly don't expect them to find a woman to marry when they're 18, 19, 20 years old. I want them to experience life just like young women want to experience life and establish themselves and prepare themselves to be more financially secure. My wife and I waited. We were in a much different spot when we had our children than we would have been had we had them early in our marriage. And so for us, I don't know if it's better or worse, but we definitely were just that way. And so I think a lot of people are doing that. Again, thank you all so much for watching us. The church bells ring for 12 o'clock here in Kansas City. It's a beautiful fall-like day. It's finally in the high 60s, low 70s. They're talking about 48 degrees overnight tonight, so that'll be lovely sweater weather. Plaza Art Fair is going to be great weather for that if the rain holds off. Smoking and Waldo barbecue competition at St. Elizabeth's Church is this weekend as well. So there's a lot of great outdoor activities. Hopefully you can do something fun where you're at too. Mercedes, Susan, Stacy, everybody else, thanks for watching. If you have questions watching this live or in the future on our Facebook page or on YouTube, go ahead and post the comments here, questions here. We get those notifications. We respond to those as often as we can. You can also send us a direct message here on Facebook. You can always send us an email at info@kcauctioncompany.com, info@kcauctioncompany, spelled out.com. Give us a phone call at 816-283-3633, and we look forward to hearing your questions in the future. Next week, we'll talk about a very specific part of the art market. A story just came out this week about the inequity in values of art created by women compared to men. And it's an interesting topic. It's a fascinating topic to get into. So next week on Behind the Gavel with Jason, we'll be talking about what kind of caused that. Is it still prevalent in the art market today? Will it change going forward? And we'll flesh that out next week. So again, thanks for watching Behind the Gavel with Jason today. Next week, we'll talk about the inequity in values of artwork created by men and women. And we're always looking for more questions or ideas. If you have questions or thoughts that we'd like us to address, please let us know. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.